anyway, we were talking last time we got together about having some kind of recording in regard to mother issues. I won't even say mother issues, but our mothers and what we derived from them, and what we took and what we didn't take. Kind of like what I wish I'd taken,
Yeah.
but didn't notice at the time, or things that we saw and learned by watching.
Well, what I was thinking of was when I was writing The Goddess of Fifth Avenue, and I was writing, which is a semi-memoir, sort of a pseudo-memoir, and I was writing about my father, and everything was so grisly and dark. And I remember my publisher, David Hayden, saying to me, "No one's one-dimensional, Simone. Where's the good stuff about him? Where's the innocent aspect of him? Where's the tender part of him? Everyone, from the darkest person, most shadowy person going, has that aspect. And you can't not bring that into life." So it was so powerful when David said that to me. You asked me about what was one of the most powerful things anyone ever said. That was one of the most powerful, because I had painted my father in such a, certain perspective, and my mother, and it stopped.
Mm-hmm.
I was really able to remember I did it as a project. I said, I'm going to write about what was really terrific about these people and what I took with me that was powerful.
Yeah, what a wonderful question to ask you, because in that moment you took your focus off what was wrong
That's
with
right.
them, and then put your focus on some other things, some other aspects of them that you hadn't been willing, or maybe had neglected for yourself to see.
Well,
It's
I
a
think
great question.
when you have very challenging childhood stuff and teenage years stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and you get to a certain place, what helped me the most out of my own victimization, or thoughts of victimization, was going back into other lives and going back into the Akashic records and taking a look at why I chose those people, the roles they played, what I was asking to learn. It took all the onus off them.
Yes.
And that really helped me a lot too. And I think it could help anyone come out of this thing of what's being done to you, which is just an illusion.
The wonderful thing, that Bob Ranch and I are writing a book on GEMT,
Yeah.
guided empathy meridian tapping. And part of the basis of the philosophy of it is exactly what you're talking about. Because what you did by looking at all of that was take responsibility for all of the things that are happening to you in your life.
That's right.
And in that moment is great healing.
And great empowerment.
Yes.
It's like you get yourself, it's like a soul retrieval. You get yourself back, and you're no longer, blaming, shaming, going down that road any longer. It's not
Right.
being done to you.
Exactly.
So I thought it'd be interesting, and you and I talked about it being interesting, about talking about the different aspects of our mothers. We'll start today with our mothers, and the next one we'll do our fathers, and what they were all about, and what we, interestingly enough, took in, and some of the things we've let go of for years, and some of the things we've gone back to and said, hey, that's pretty cool.
Exactly.
I guess I do have that. You know what I mean? Because I think for me, I don't know if this is true in your practice, but I have so many women that come in that I'll look at their chart and then I'll say, where's your mother? And mostly they'll say, well, she lives in another state. I don't talk to her anymore. Or I'm very close with her, or she passed. Those are the three that I get all the time. And then when I look at the chart, I see certain obstacles that are in the chart. And I always ask, does your mother have this? Does your mother feel this way?
Mm-hmm.
Does your mother appear stuck this way? Does your mother, is she the tender one? Did she teach you about your innocence? It's fascinating how powerful our mothers are, and whether we're aligned to them or we're not seeing them, or we're angry at them, or we think they're our best friends.
Yeah.
It's amazingly powerful.
I'd like to look at it from the point of view that our mothers are our first connection to humanity, the human experience. And we are, because in utero, we are
Yes.
picking up so much
Yes.
from where our mothers are at that time,
Absolutely.
you know. And some of the things that we're carrying with us are some of our mother's life at that time when we're in utero.
I like doing hypnotherapy sessions with women that have a lot of depression or anxiety, and taking them back into the womb and what's coming through the cord, the umbilical cord, from their mothers at the time and from the outer world. And it's amazing the colors they see and the energy they see. And when we disconnect from that and then clear it through their bodies, the difference is amazing. There's so much that comes through that umbilical cord.
Absolutely.
It's powerful, powerful, powerful.
Right.
That's really cool.
I've watched sometimes, it's always interesting to me how each of us has a certain relationship with our mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember after my mother passed, and my mother passed when I was about 30. And
wow.
Yes, and so I always envy people who have had a relationship with their mother for a much longer time. But I remember that after she passed, we were all in a family reunion, and we're talking about her, and I start to cry. I mean, out of the blue, all these tears started coming, and one of my aunts said to me, "What's the matter?" And I said, "I never knew her."
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't. I mean, I only knew her from my perceptions. I only knew her from my observations, that at that time, when I was growing up, let's face it, I wasn't exactly deep in my thinking. As children aren't, you notice things and that's just how it is. But that was a grieving moment for me because of what I didn't know about her. She was a human being. She was my mother, but she was a human being. She had all kinds of aspects about her that she never shared with me, but she didn't share things about herself. She didn't share her fears, her dreams, her wishes, because who did that then?
That behavior was part of the era.
Yes, it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I don't know that that's true about all people at that time, but it was certainly true about my family.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever talked to your mother on the other side?
No, but she talked to me.
Mm-hmm.
I've told that story many times when, after she passed, about 3 or 4 months after she passed, I was not doing well. It was such a shock. It was probably the greatest trauma of my life, before and since. Well, because she died very suddenly. And I mean, first she was here and then she wasn't.
Yeah.
Because of that, I was not dealing well with it at all emotionally. I would be having a conversation with you and burst into tears. And I was withdrawing from socially and so on. And one night when I went to bed, did I go to sleep or did I go into some other dimension? I don't know, but she appeared to me and sat opposite me, told me what I needed to do. And one of the things she said was, "You have to stop grieving now, because where I am is impossible to be as happy on earth as where I am.
Oh,
And I have my, and she said clearly, I have my work to do. And when you grieve like this, it calls me back, it pulls me back.
wow.
And then I can't do my work. But I wasn't conscious enough at that time to say, what is your work? What is it you're doing? Because she said, your life has to be lived.
Mhm.
And your life needs to be lived so that you can fulfill the things that you came in this lifetime to do.
That's
And
great.
it is not for you to sit and grieve about me. Your life is for you to live.
Yes.
And know that I am absolutely fine where I am.
That's great.
So,
What a gift.
what a gift. And it was the first time I'd ever had a visitation. Now I've had many since then, but it was the first time I'd ever had a visitation. And when I came out of that, was it a dream? I don't know, but I can tell you the details of that experience right now as though it happened 5 minutes ago.
It's so nice.
Right. From that point of view, that is who my mother was, even in life. She always had advice, but not advice so much as wisdom.
Hmm.
Just wisdom came from her. Now, was she funny? She was. She had a great sense of humor. And she always had a saying about something. So, what did I learn from her? One of the things I learned is to look for the best in people.
Hmm.
Now, did she say to me only look? She never said to me, look for the best in people.
So these are things you took
But my
from.
observation of her is that's what I took.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because you're very funny and you're very wise. I mean, many of the things you're talking about are so, that's just how you flow. That's how you run. Is there anything that you did not take from her and were conscious that you were not going to take from her?
Yes. Take this for however you'd like to take it.
Oh, baby.
But my mother never learned to drive, and because she was afraid to. She had certain fears, and I observed that. And there was a time in my life when I said to myself, I don't want to be fearful.
Mhm.
And why was she fearful? I don't know, because that's the part that I didn't know. Where could I have asked her that at some point? Probably, but it didn't occur to me to ask that, because in our family, you didn't ask those deep questions. One of the things I got from my mother was, do not burden other people with your problems. That was a big one.
So you're saying you got that from her. Did you take it?
I took it for a long time. I, I did. I took that as part of me for a long time. And I would say that I'm probably still a little bit like that. If I have any real problems, I don't go, lament about it. I don't lament about things. So I mean, who I am at this point in my life, a lot of who I am is because of her.
Oh,
what
lovely.
she what she taught me, what she didn't teach me. It took me a long time, quite frankly, to get to a place where I could share things about myself with a friend. I never would do that because that was a training. Never burden other people with your problems. It's another thing that I would say, and I often wonder about this. If my mother had not passed when she did, I probably never would have come to California.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That, because there's that umbilical cord with your
Hmm.
mom. I wonder if she's guiding you on the other side.
Oh, I would say so.
Hmm.
And I think that was her work.
That's what I think.
Yeah. I don't, not necessarily about me, but I think that was her work. And I thought that when she said that to me, and I had no clue what that would even mean at that time.
Yeah, but your spirit knew.
Yes, my soul wise, I did. Yeah.
That's such a lovely story. These generations, let's see, your mom passed, and what year did she pass?
1965.
65, right. And my mother just passed in 2010. We have so much more freedom. We really do than they had.
Mm-hmm.
There were so many laws and ways of being, and that women were not allowed to be.
Right.
And we're so blessed that way.
Absolutely.
And to help other women come out of that,
Mm-hmm.
imprisonment, of what they can't be and what they shouldn't be and all that stuff is such an honor.
Tell me about your relationship with your mom. What did you get from her? What did you learn from her? What did you learn to do? What did you learn not to do?
Well, my mother was a very interesting soul. She was an Aries, and Aries usually is very high energy and, vibrant and adventurer. And my mom had, her parents were very strict, stern. This is in Amsterdam, New York.
Oh, God.
And her father worked for the Mohawk carpeting people.
Okay.
And her mother was a stay-home mother who wore a very tight hairnet that really kind of embodied her whole persona. And those lace-up shoes that women used to wear that had heels. And
How
those,
old are you?
I'm old. This is in the 1950s that I'm talking about. And my mother was very beautiful as a child, and she grew up to be very beautiful. And she had an older sister who was very jealous of her and was very mean to her and very abusive to her, and was very jealous because my mother was the first woman that went to college. She went to Cornell, and she did very well there. And she met my father there. And my mom was, had big brown doe eyes and was very thin boned and very flirty with guys. She trusted guys more because she had a father that was much more supportive than her mother. And they called her Chickie, and she was a cheerleader, but she was also very shy. And so by the time I got to know my mother had been in an abusive relationship by the time I was umbilically cord to her. So I've done a lot of work on releasing what she was going through at the time. She had a lot of phenobarbital in her body. She would get migraines. She basically put up with horrible stuff because she was taught to do that. Her mother would say, shh, just shh, like that. And and it's funny for an Aries, because Aries would say, no, it's my way. I know how to do this. And they break through stuff. Well, my mother it wasn't until she came out to her 60s and 70s and 80s that she really was born. She lived with my father for 25 years, who was a predator and abuser, amongst other things. He had some very good things that we're going to talk about in the father thing, but he would call her stupid. He would really put her down and would be very abusive. And she got very depressed. And plus she raised a retarded child that took a lot of energy, and who she loved and devoted her life to. She was a great mother to Connie, my sister, who just recently passed. Hi there. So glad that she's free. Anyway, so what I knew about my mother was, she was very sexy. She was very shy. She was prone to depression and migraines. She took tranquilizers. She was forced into a very, and I mean forced, because she came from this little tiny town in upstate New York into the big New York scene. She felt very lost. She was around these very highfalutin, social climbing people that had the best wardrobes, and she didn't know what she wore shirt-waisted dresses, And yet she was very pretty. So she got away with a lot of stuff because that was an era when being pretty meant everything. And she had a tiny waist, and that meant everything, and pretty legs, and that meant a lot. So she made her way through, but I started taking care of my mother when I was very young. I was really her mother, and I was her confidant. And she was she had an innocence about her that was so lovely. For instance, she loved animals. So she would like to go to the zoo a lot in New York City, the Central Park Zoo, and she would come back with these stories about how she had eye-to-eye contact with the seals and the tigers and blah, blah, blah. And in her later years, she lived outside of Palm Beach, and she would go to, I think it was called Animal Safari. So I'd get all these pictures from her. I was on the West Coast, her holding tiger babies and, a llama baby, and she was in a bliss state. I mean, she had a huge thing for animal rights. She was also very much a civil rights person. She wasn't in the streets, but she had very strong belief systems about equality and lives matter.
And this is you got that from her then. You took that from her.
I did.
Mm-hmm.
I took a lot of stuff from her, tons. But also, without her, I probably would not have been the healer, had this healing proclivity, and learned so much about it because I started working on her when I was 7 years old. That's a very positive thing. I lost a lot of my childhood, but I got so much out of it.
That's right.
That has changed my world. And also I'm a big animal rights activist, and she helped me so much with that. She just really honored every living thing. She was into plants and flowers. And now the stuff that I took on that wasn't so great, being with abusive men once in a while in my earlier life, and not knowing how to discern myself, being a caretaker and giving way too much to prove that I was lovable, taking tranquilizers at an early age, and going with that. And I mean, these are things that everybody has aspects. I got to a place, what happened with my mother was when she turned 60, she really turned a corner. She divorced my father. Yay, go Marge, go Chickie. And I kept trying to get her to go to court because he wasn't paying bills for my retired sister, and she wouldn't go to court. She was very shy that way. But finally she did divorce him, and she went back to college at 60 during an era where women really didn't do that. She was by far the oldest in any of her classes. In her 70s and 80s, she remarried. She was with her second husband for 25 years. And she rode around on a motorcycle in her 80s and 90s. She would get on my stepbrother's motorcycle and cling on for dear life. I mean, this is a woman that had strokes already. And she would say, I gotta go, I wanna be on the motorcycle. So she got very much more animated. It was probably, she thought, who cares at this point? I'll just do anything I want. And she just blossomed. And one of my greatest joys with her as she got older, really old, because she had over 100 strokes at the end. And I would send her hypnotherapy tapes after going to the school, at Josie's school and your school. And I would, to help her nervous system to calm down, and because she couldn't talk any longer. I mean, she actually became like a parrot. She was like a bird. She'd make these bird sounds. But you know what? She was in total peace. She was so calm. So she opened doors for me through the healing I did on her that were so profound, and she let me do it. And I remember once when my other sister, Nina, and I went to see her in Miami, and she was drinking a lot, and so was her second husband. And I said, well, I could sit down with her and I could make a big deal out of this, or I could honor her and see where she goes with it. So I went and I bought her a huge thing of coral roses, and I took them to her, and she said, I don't deserve this. It was so bizarre. She had never said anything like that ever. And I said, yes, you do. look at your daughters. Look what you raised. These are really terrific people. And it's because of you. And she was so happy and mind blown about the whole thing. She was ecstatic and she hugged those roses to her. So yes, I had a lot that I wish she'd protected me. I wish. I could go on with a story like that forever until I remembered that, wait a minute, I set all that up and for a reason. And thank God she acted out in the play with me, that she showed up to be an actress, because I got some incredibly fine stuff from being with her.
What a wonderful way to perceive all of that, because that perception frees you
Oh,
from holding a lot of animosity in any way, and it lets you heal.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're not being at the effect of anything.
No, because you're looking at the value of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that those lessons that you got were lessons you asked for.
Exactly.
Now, hopefully, as we evolve, we stop asking for things that make us suffer or make us,
yes,
or keep us out of coming into who we are, or whatever the situation is. That we forgive ourselves to the very core, because I'm sure that's what the Creator wants.
What did you learn? What did you learn from her that? Because we learn what we learn how to be. We also learn how not to be. Mm-hmm. From people around us. What did you learn from her that you chose not to be?
I learned from her to put up with a lot of bullshit from men, and then as she got older and she got more herself back, I would say,
right,
she didn't put up with half as much. Right. So I started changing in my 30s. I started not putting up with a lot of that stuff, but it took me a long time, because when you have a mother that doesn't love themselves fully, and you get the message, oh, wait a minute, I don't know if I should. I don't want to bypass her. I don't want to upset her life. If she's not that lovable and she's my mother, how can I be? There are all those subconscious messages that go on.
Absolutely.
So, that's the beauty of working with hypnotherapy or working with somebody that can help you come out of that trance state of what you took in of your mother's.
Yeah. The behaviors that we have that we don't even know why we have them. It's just, many times people say, well, it's just how I am. Well, right. How's that working for you is my next question.
Right.
But you were very fortunate that your mother played her role as well as she did, because it made you who you are. It or not.
And right. And I'm so grateful for her sweetness. At the end, she was so incredibly sweet and loving and generous with her energy and with everything. She couldn't do enough for me just by looking in my eyes and the love that she transmitted. And that was so lovely. It was, it dissolved everything else, really. Once you can get to that place of just love. And the other thing was that she was very codependent. When I tried to leave when I was 20 years old and I was living in Miami, and I knew I got to get out of here. I got to go. I was at the University of Miami, and it was just a party school, and I just didn't want to be there. And I said, Mom, I got to go. I'm going to go to California. And she said, please don't leave me. Yeah. And I swore to myself in that moment, Simone, Carol at the time, take a look at how you're feeling right now and don't do this. Don't ask this of anyone. Because you feel, when you're someone's daughter and they're, older, you want to be there for them in mostly every level, but never give up your life for anyone. Never give up your freedom for anyone. Yeah,
I agree.
I had to go. I knew it, and I knew I'd have a different life. So it's interesting, isn't it? It gives us so much content to work with subliminally and on a conscious level.
In retrospect, as you look at your relationship with your mother, what would you feel that you could say is one of the things that you learned from her that has served you best as the person you are today?
Well, I watched her with my sister who was retarded, and her incredible resiliency to watch a child that was born absolutely perfect, given smallpox, diphtheria, I can't remember what the third shot was, and see this child go through into profound retardation, and then have to give her to a home at age 5 because they couldn't take care of her any longer. She was in so much suffering. My mother never gave up on that child. She would go from New York to Miami 7, 8 times a year. She would fly and spend a week in Miami and make sure she was taking Connie out in the car and bringing magazines and, taking her to In-N-Out. It wasn't In-N-Out Burger, it was probably McDonald's or something, because Connie loved that. That was one thing that she could really have fun with. And she taught me how, when you love someone and you're devoted to them, you're devoted to them. She gave her life to her daughter.
That was unconditional love.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
She was so powerful that way. I've often said to my sister, I don't know how she lived through that. My father, Connie, all the crazy things that happened. And yet she went on, she got married, and then she was on a motorcycle at 90. Hello.
Yeah, but there's what I'm saying. There are some things your mother let go of all of the things that held her back. Yes. At a certain point, and became who she really is, or who she really was.
Exactly.
And that kind of strength that you see that she had, she did all of those things because she was strong.
She was.
Yeah.
She was not allowed to be. She was really, and she had her own reasons why she came into her family.
Exactly.
The sister that hated her and blah, 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 blah,
right,
blah. All
right.
these things, all these situations, people that come up to us, we think as adversaries,
mm-hmm.
They're really shamanic situations for us.
Yeah.
That we've asked for. But it takes a bigness in yourself.
Yes.
To not want to be a victim any longer, because being a victim isn't real.
Well, it's all an illusion anyway.
Yep.
It's our perceptions that cause us to think that we're victims, when in fact, if we look at it from the point of view of, we set this whole thing up at some point, and if we take full responsibility for all of that, then we're no longer a victim. Now we're free.
And being a victim works for a lot of people.
I know that.
It's a big manipulative thing that, and I have people, and I'm sure you have too, when you said, would you consider that maybe, there are good things that have come out of this for you or whatever, that get angry because being a victim has gotten them to a certain place.
Exactly.
It's work for them. It's a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And get them out of that benefit way of thinking is really the name of the game. I've seen people come out of cancer. And also the amount of women that are afraid that they're going to get their mother's diseases. I see that a lot too. But, it's all about consciousness. If something has happened to you and you're still blaming your mother for her alcoholism, or that she had abusive boyfriends, or that she didn't know how to relate to you or whatever, start taking a look at yourself and where you've been with yourself and what you needed to grow.
Yeah.
And take some space from projecting on your parents. Yeah. I'm not saying it was fun, some of it.
Well, as children, it's never fun. As children, we can't have this kind of consciousness. We can't have this kind of conversation. I love the fact that that you were invited to look at what was right with them,
right,
rather than only what you felt was wrong with them. That had to shift so much for you.
With my mother than with my father.
I'm sure.
Even now, last week or the week before last, when I went to see Dr. Gerald Cohen, homeopathist, chiropractor, healer, incredible being, and I was on the table, and he said to me, I was saying something about New York. We're both from New York City. And he said, you're your dad gave you such an opportunity by taking you to New York. What you learned, even though those were hard years for you, the sophistication, the cinema, the theater, the jazz, the art. Lucky you. Have you given that to him yet?
Oh.
You see what I'm saying? And then that opens up a huge panorama inside of my heart that says, oh my God, so much of the things I love I got from New York, you know?
I know. One of the things that I admire about you is your ability to be with anyone. And I don't care who it is. I don't care what name they go by in this lifetime, but you're comfortable with celebrities, with anyone, and it's as though for you they're just, you know, the person next door. You're not intimidated by celebrity of any kind.
Yeah, that was not anything I got from my mother. I got that from my father.
Yes.
How nice it is to sit across from somebody who had a great relationship with their mother and really honored their mother and misses their mother and really got who your mother was. For as much as she could give you,
Yes.
You took it.
Yes.
You took it.
And you know, and it's interesting. I think that if you have a good relationship with your mother, she died 65 years ago.
Wow.
No, sorry, 55 years ago. I'm not that old. And every now and then something will happen, and there's that brief split second thought, oh, I have to tell her this.
Right.
You know?
How lovely is that?
Because it never goes away.
Oh, but that's so beautiful, Dot.
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody say that before.
Right.
Like for me, if I'm holding Rumi in my arms, I think of my mom. If I'm picking out roses, I think of my mom. If I see the color coral, and she loved turquoise, I think of my mom.
Yeah.
I don't have an ongoing, thing about that, but I think it's beautiful that you allowed that for yourself in this life.
Yes, I think so too.
It's really lovely. Good for you. Good for you. Well, everybody, I hope you'll take some time and feel into your relationship with your mother and what it was and what it can be.
And what it is.
And what it, and what's illusion.
Yeah.
And what's rejection. And where's your compassion with it? And where do you want to go with your life?
And what did you admire? What's one characteristic that you admired about your mother? Look and see if that's in you.
And what else is in you, and what do you attribute to your mother? Because there's a lot. Maybe it's in the way you raised your children, or if you live alone, maybe it's in the way you live alone. We don't know, but there's a lot. I promise you. And I would write about it. I would, start a page about me and my mother, and what I got from her. What I choose to take from her. What I forgive in this situation, and how it feels to know that I set the whole thing up.
Yeah, and the other part is, what about her made me the person I am today?
I love it, and I hope you'll do it, because that's a part of enlightenment. It's big, from all the way back before you even came in, to knowing all the parts of what went on with your mother, from the womb all the way up. It's a lot of content.
And I'm going to say this: if you have some grievances against either of your parents, think about it from this point of view. I think everyone does the best they can with what they've got in the moment. And sometimes we have more in some moments than we have in other moments. And that's true of you. That's true of me. And so that has to be true of our parents as well.
The closing thing I want to say is, remember, when you see your mother in pain, either emotionally or physically, that you cannot save your mother. Your mother set it up a certain way, and as a soul, she needs to experience what she's going with. So the optimum line is, I have compassion for the path you've chosen. You've got to be free in life so you have enough energy to do what you came back to heal and contribute. And if you try and save these very key figures in your life, you're really interrupting their own blueprint of what they have to work on. So we want compassion, right, Dot?
That's exactly, and empathy.
Yeah, compassion and empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And love. We love you.
And
see you next time.
Thank you for viewing us. And Simone, I'll see you soon.
You will, and we'll be back talking about our fathers next week. Lots of love.
Ooh, that's going to be a tough one.
Woo, baby.